The NFL stadium where silence after the final whistle becomes the true terror is AT&T Stadium, a colossal structure that rises from the flat landscape of Arlington, Texas, like a modern-day coliseum built not of stone, but of steel, glass, and ambition. Its story is not merely about football. It is about power, expectation, pressure, history, and the unsettling weight of silence that falls when dreams collapse in front of tens of thousands of witnesses. To understand why the quiet inside AT&T Stadium can feel more frightening than the loudest roar, it is necessary to journey through its origins, its symbolism, the people who shaped it, and the unforgettable moments that transformed it into one of the most psychologically intense arenas in professional sports. The idea of building a new home for the Dallas Cowboys began to take shape in the late 1990s and early 2000s when the franchise, already one of the most valuable and recognizable brands in global sports, outgrew the aging Texas Stadium in Irving. Texas Stadium had history. It had legends. It had the famous hole in the roof where, as the saying went, God could watch his favorite team play. But by the turn of the millennium, it no longer matched the vision of Jerry Jones, the Cowboys' owner, president, and general manager. Jones, who purchased the team in 1989, was never a man content with tradition alone. He wanted dominance not only on the field, but in architecture, technology, and spectacle. He wanted a stadium that would redefine what an NFL venue could be. After years of planning, negotiations, and public debate, the city of Arlington approved a bond referendum in April 2004 to help fund the construction of the new stadium. The decision was controversial. Public money would be used to support a private sports franchise, and many residents questioned whether the cost was justified. But Jerry Jones promised that the result would be something unprecedented, a landmark that would put Arlington on the global map. Construction officially began in September 2005, and from the start, it was clear that this would not be an ordinary stadium. Designed by the architectural firm HKS Incomast, AT&T Stadium was envisioned as a futuristic cathedral of sports. Its most striking feature, the massive retractable roof, was engineered to be the largest of its kind in the world at the time. Even more astonishing was the center-hung high-definition video board, designed by Mitsubishi Electric. When it was unveiled, it was the largest HD screen ever installed in a sports venue, stretching approximately 160 feet wide and nearly 72 feet tall. It was so large that players initially complained it was distracting during games. The NFL eventually had to adjust rules regarding punts hitting the screen, a problem no one had ever imagined before. The stadium officially opened on May 27, 2009, and its first regular season NFL game took place on September 20th of that year, when the Dallas Cowboys faced the New York Giants. From the outside, the stadium gleamed like a monument to excess and confidence. From the inside, it felt overwhelming. With a seating capacity of over 80,000, expandable to more than 100,000 for special events, AT&T Stadium was built to amplify sound, emotion, and expectation. Every cheer echoed. Every mistake was magnified. Every moment carried weight. For the Dallas Cowboys, a team often referred to as America's team, the stadium became both a throne and a burden. The Cowboys' legacy is filled with Super Bowl victories, legendary players like Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin, and decades of national attention. Playing at AT&T Stadium meant inheriting all of that history at once. The crowd did not come merely to watch a game. They came expecting greatness, dominance, and victory. Anything less felt like betrayal. Over time, a strange phenomenon began to emerge. When the Cowboys won big games at home, the stadium was deafening. The roar of the crowd felt unstoppable, a wall of sound that lifted players and crushed opponents. But when things went wrong, when seasons ended too early or crucial games slipped away, something else happened. The noise vanished. What remained was silence, thick and heavy, pressing down on the field like a physical force. This silence became most noticeable in playoff games and high-stakes moments. One of the most haunting examples occurred on January 14, 2017, during a divisional round playoff game against the Green Bay Packers. The Cowboys, led by rookie quarterback Dak Prescott and star running back Ezekiel Elliott, had mounted a comeback after falling behind early. The crowd was electric, believing a return to glory was finally at hand. But in the final seconds, Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers completed a miraculous sideline pass to Jared Cook, setting up a game-winning field goal. When the kick sailed through the uprights, the stadium fell into an eerie quiet. Tens of thousands of fans stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. The silence was not peaceful. It was devastating. That moment revealed something profound about AT&T Stadium. It was not just a place of entertainment. It was a pressure chamber. The sheer size of the building, the brightness of the screens, the luxury suites filled with celebrities, sponsors, and former players all contributed to an atmosphere where failure felt public and overwhelming. Players later spoke about how the quiet after a loss felt worse than being booed. Booing at least carried emotion. Silence felt like judgment. The phenomenon repeated itself in subsequent years. In the 2018 season, the Cowboys again hosted a playoff game at AT&T Stadium, this time against the Seattle Seahawks. They won, and the stadium exploded with joy. But 1 week later, in the divisional round against the Los Angeles Rams, the Cowboys were outplayed. As the Rams built an insurmountable lead, the crowd slowly faded. By the fourth quarter, the noise had drained away, replaced by scattered murmurs and the hollow echo of footsteps in the concourses. The final whistle blew, and once again, silence took over. AT&T Stadium has also hosted events far beyond the NFL, each adding layers to its identity. It has been the site of Super Bowl XLV in February 2011, when the Green Bay Packers defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers. It has hosted college football national championships, including the 2015 College Football Playoff National Championship, where Ohio State defeated Oregon. It has welcomed boxing matches, concerts by artists like U2 and Beyoncé, WrestleMania events, and even international soccer matches. Yet no matter the event, the stadium's most defining moments remain tied to football and to the emotional extremes experienced by the Cowboys and their fans. The architecture itself seems to play a role in amplifying the psychological impact. The massive open interior creates a sense of exposure. There is nowhere to hide, emotionally or physically. When the crowd is loud, it feels like standing inside a storm. When the crowd goes quiet, the emptiness is unmistakable. Players hear their own breathing. Coaches hear every word spoken through headsets. The silence highlights mistakes, missed opportunities, and the crushing reality of expectations unmet. Jerry Jones has often spoken about the stadium as a symbol of excellence and ambition. In interviews over the years, he has described AT&T Stadium as a reflection of the Cowboys brand, bold, confident, and larger than life. But critics have argued that the stadium also represents the weight of that brand, the constant reminder of past success that has not been replicated since the 1995 season, when the Cowboys won their fifth Super Bowl. Every year without a championship adds tension. Every playoff loss deepens the sense that something is missing. Former players and analysts have commented on how playing in AT&T Stadium can feel different from other venues. Some suggest that the environment, while spectacular, can be intimidating even for the home team. The desire to perform perfectly, to meet the expectations of a global audience, can tighten muscles and cloud judgment. In that sense, the silence after defeat becomes the stadium's most honest voice. It says what no chant or cheer ever could. The fans, too, experience this silence in a deeply personal way. Many travel from across Texas and beyond, wearing jerseys passed down through generations. They remember the glory years, the dominance of the 1990s, the belief that the Cowboys were destined to win. When they leave the stadium after a painful loss, walking beneath the massive arches and into the vast parking lots, the quiet follows them. It lingers in car rides home, in empty highways, in late-night sports radio shows filled with frustration and hope intertwined. Over time, AT&T Stadium has earned a reputation not just as one of the most impressive venues in sports, but as one of the most emotionally intense. Visiting teams often speak about the initial shock of the crowd noise, followed by the surreal calm that can settle in if the Cowboys falter. That shift from thunder to silence is what many describe as unsettling. It is the moment when momentum dies and reality sets in. Even the name AT&T Stadium, adopted in 2013 after the telecommunications giant purchased naming rights, reflects the corporate scale and modern identity of the venue. Yet despite its sleek branding and technological marvels, the stadium's most powerful moments remain human. They are found in the expressions of players staring at the giant screen in disbelief, in fans with hands on their heads, in the shared understanding that something precious has slipped away. As the years continue and the Cowboys chase another Super Bowl, AT&T Stadium stands ready to amplify whatever comes next. It will roar if victory arrives. It will shake if history is rewritten. But if disappointment returns, if another season ends too soon, the stadium will do what it does best. It will fall silent. And in that silence, louder than any cheer, will be the true terror of unmet expectations echoing through one of the greatest arenas ever built. In the end, AT&T Stadium is not terrifying because of ghosts or darkness or fear in the traditional sense. It is terrifying because it reflects hope so vividly, and then, in an instant, can strip it away. The silence after the final whistle is not empty. It is filled with memory, pressure, and longing. It is the sound of a dream paused, waiting for the moment when noise can return and drown it out once more. The dream of grandeur that gave birth to a colossus in Arlington is a story that unfolds slowly, shaped by ambition, dissatisfaction, vision, and an unshakable belief that the Dallas Cowboys should always stand at the very center of American sports culture. This story begins in the late 1990s, at a moment when the franchise, despite its legendary past, was starting to feel constrained by the very place that once symbolized its dominance. The old Texas Stadium, located in Irving, Texas, had been inaugurated back in 1971 and for decades had been one of the most recognizable arenas in the NFL. Its iconic hole in the roof, famously described as a place where God could watch his favorite team play, had witnessed Super Bowl seasons, Hall of Fame careers, and unforgettable Sundays. Yet by the end of the 20th century, what had once been a marvel of modern sports architecture no longer matched the scale of the Cowboys' ambitions. Luxury boxes were outdated, technological infrastructure lagged behind newer stadiums, and revenue potential paled in comparison to what was emerging in other major American cities. The NFL was changing, becoming a league driven not only by wins and losses, but by spectacle, entertainment, and global branding. For the Dallas Cowboys, a franchise that proudly called itself America's team, staying still meant falling behind. And no one understood that reality better than Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones had purchased the Dallas Cowboys in 1989, a move that initially shocked the football world. A businessman from Arkansas with a background in oil and gas, Jones was not a traditional NFL owner, molded by generations of inherited wealth or quiet boardroom presence. He was bold, outspoken, and relentlessly driven. When he bought the team, he made it clear that he saw the Cowboys not merely as a football franchise, but as a global entertainment brand. Over the following decade, that philosophy would transform how the organization operated, from marketing strategies to sponsorship deals. Yet by the late 1990s, Jones faced a hard truth. As long as the Cowboys remained in Texas Stadium, their growth would be physically and symbolically limited. The idea of building a new stadium did not emerge overnight. It simmered for years, fueled by Jones's frequent travels, conversations with architects, technology experts, and league executives, and his observations of new venues rising across the country. He imagined a stadium that would redefine what it meant to attend a football game, a place where architecture, technology, and emotion merged into a single overwhelming experience. This was not about replacing Texas Stadium. It was about surpassing it in every conceivable way. As discussions intensified in the early 2000s, the search for a location became central to the vision. Irving, while historically significant, could not offer the financial and political support required for such an ambitious project. Attention soon turned to Arlington, a city strategically located between Dallas and Fort Worth. Arlington's leadership saw an opportunity not only to host the Cowboys, but to redefine the city's future. The negotiations were complex, involving public funding, long-term economic projections, and intense public debate. The turning point came in April 2004, when the citizens of Arlington were asked to vote in a referendum that would decide whether public funds would help finance the new stadium. The proposal included a sales tax increase, a hotel occupancy tax, and a car rental tax, all designed to support the project. The debate was emotional and deeply personal for many residents. Supporters argued that the stadium would bring jobs, tourism, and global recognition to Arlington. Critics worried about public money being used to fund a private sports franchise. Jerry Jones, fully aware of what was at stake, became one of the project's most visible advocates, emphasizing the long-term benefits and promising a venue unlike anything the world had ever seen. When the referendum passed in April 2004, it marked more than a political victory. It was the moment when a dream moved decisively toward reality. With public approval secured, planning accelerated. Architects from the firm HKS, based in Dallas, were brought in to help translate Jerry Jones's vision into concrete and steel. The design process was exhaustive, involving countless revisions and technological innovations. Every element was scrutinized, from sightlines and seating comfort to acoustics and airflow. Construction officially began in September 2005, and from the very start, the scale of the project was impossible to ignore. Rising from the flat Texas landscape, the structure quickly became one of the largest construction sites in North America. Thousands of workers labored day and night, dealing with logistical challenges that matched the ambition of the design. The stadium's massive arches, which would eventually become one of its most recognizable features, required unprecedented engineering solutions. Each arch spanned over 200 feet, longer than the height of the Eiffel Tower laid on its side, and their installation was itself a spectacle that drew national attention. At the heart of the stadium's design was the retractable roof, a feature that symbolized both practicality and innovation. Texas weather is famously unpredictable, with scorching summer heat, sudden storms, and crisp autumn evenings. The roof allowed the Cowboys to control the environment, ensuring comfort without sacrificing the feeling of openness. When closed, it created a climate-controlled cathedral of football. When open, it framed the Texas sky, reminding fans that this was not just any stadium, but one rooted deeply in regional identity. Perhaps the most revolutionary element, however, was the massive high-definition video board suspended above the field. Conceived as a central pillar of the fan experience, the screen would become the largest of its kind in the world at the time of installation. Stretching approximately 160 feet wide and 72 feet tall, it transformed how fans engaged with the game. Replays, close-ups, and visual effects were no longer secondary elements. They became part of the spectacle itself. Players, coaches, and broadcasters alike had to adjust to a new reality where the stadium experience rivaled and in many ways surpassed watching from home. As construction progressed through the late 2000s, anticipation grew steadily. The stadium was no longer just a local project. It was becoming a national talking point and an international curiosity. Media outlets followed each milestone, from the placement of the roof panels to the installation of the video board. Jerry Jones frequently spoke to reporters, his tone blending pride with relentless confidence. He described the stadium as a place built not only for football, but for history, a venue capable of hosting Super Bowls, college championships, concerts, and global events. Finally, on May 27, 2009, the dream reached its official culmination. The stadium, now known as AT&T Stadium, was formally inaugurated in a ceremony that celebrated both its completion and its promise. Located in Arlington, Texas, it stood as a monument to ambition made real. Though the Dallas Cowboys would play their first regular season game there later that year, the opening itself symbolized the end of a decade-long journey that began with dissatisfaction and evolved into something transformative. From the moment its doors opened, it was clear that AT&T Stadium was more than a replacement for Texas Stadium. It was a declaration. It declared that the Dallas Cowboys would not merely participate in the NFL's future, but shape it. It declared that technology, architecture, and sport could coexist at an unprecedented scale. And it declared that a vision, when pursued with enough determination, could rise from an idea into a structure so vast that it redefined expectations. Between 1999 and 2009, the Cowboys' dream of grandeur had moved from quiet frustration to global spectacle. What began as a recognition that the past was no longer sufficient ended as one of the most iconic stadiums ever built. In Arlington, under sweeping arches and a roof that could open to the sky, a new chapter of NFL history was written, one that forever changed how fans experienced the game and how the world viewed the power of sports architecture. Stepping into the most imposing stadium in the NFL is not merely a physical act for the Dallas Cowboys. It is a psychological crossing, a passage into a space where history breathes, expectations weigh heavily, and every movement is judged against decades of triumph and heartbreak. AT&T Stadium, rising from Arlington, Texas, is far more than steel, glass, and technology. It is the modern cathedral of a franchise that has carried the nickname America's Team for nearly half a century, a title that brings pride, reverence, and an almost unbearable pressure to live up to the past. The weight of that identity did not begin in Arlington. It was forged long before, in moments that defined not only the Cowboys but the NFL itself. In the 1970s, under the calm leadership of quarterback Roger Staubach, the Cowboys became a symbol of consistency, resilience, and national appeal. Staubach, a former Navy officer who won the Heisman Trophy in 1963, embodied discipline and quiet confidence. Leading Dallas to Super Bowl victories in the 1971 and 1977 seasons, he helped cement the idea that the Cowboys were not just a regional team, but a national institution. Television audiences across the United States tuned in not only to watch football, but to watch the Cowboys, turning them into a shared cultural experience. That legacy deepened in the 1990s, a decade that still defines the emotional expectations surrounding the franchise. Under head coach Jimmy Johnson and later Barry Switzer, the Cowboys assembled one of the most dominant rosters in NFL history. Troy Aikman, drafted first overall in 1989, became the face of a new era. Calm under pressure and fiercely competitive, Aikman led the team with precision and authority. Behind him was Emmitt Smith, the relentless running back whose vision, toughness, and consistency would eventually make him the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Lining up wide was Michael Irvin, whose intensity and charisma matched the moment, turning every game into a personal battle. Together, they formed the core of a dynasty that captured Super Bowl titles in the 1992, 1993, and 1995 seasons, bringing the Cowboys' total championships to 5. Those victories were not just trophies, they became reference points, eternal benchmarks against which every future Cowboys team would be measured. When the franchise moved into AT&T Stadium in 2009, those memories did not fade. Instead, they followed the players onto the field, amplified by the sheer scale and grandeur of their new home. The stadium itself seems to remind everyone inside of what this team once was and what it is expected to be again. For modern players, walking out of the tunnel at AT&T Stadium is an experience unlike any other in professional sports. The vastness of the space can feel overwhelming. The towering arches, the sweeping roof, and the massive video board hanging above the field create a sense of exposure, as if nothing can be hidden. Every mistake is magnified, replayed in crystal-clear detail on the largest screens, while tens of thousands of fans react instantly. The noise does not just come from the stands, it comes from the history embedded in the building, from the names and moments that echo through time. The fans, too, feel this weight. Cowboys supporters do not arrive at the stadium merely hoping for a good game. They arrive carrying memories passed down through generations. Some remember watching Staubach engineer last-minute comebacks. Others grew up idolizing Aikman's composure, Smith's determination, and Irvin's fire. For many, attending a game at AT&T Stadium is an emotional ritual, a reaffirmation of loyalty to a team that has promised greatness and, at times, struggled to deliver it. Every kickoff is loaded with expectation, and every drive feels like a test of whether this generation can honor the ones that came before. The architecture of the stadium intensifies these emotions. Unlike older venues that feel enclosed and intimate, AT&T Stadium is deliberately open and monumental. Its design does not allow players to forget where they are. The luxury suites, stacked high and filled with celebrities, former players, business leaders, and public figures, serve as constant reminders that every performance is being watched, evaluated, and remembered. From Hollywood stars to Hall of Fame legends, the presence of influential eyes adds another layer of pressure. This is not just a football game. It is a national event, often broadcast to millions, dissected by analysts, and debated across the country. Media attention has always followed the Cowboys, but inside AT&T Stadium it feels unavoidable. Cameras are everywhere, capturing reactions, sideline conversations, and moments of frustration or triumph. A dropped pass, a missed tackle, or a poorly timed penalty can feel heavier here than anywhere else in the league. In this environment, success resonates loudly, but failure echoes even louder. Players speak openly about the mental challenge of performing in a place where silence after a mistake can feel just as deafening as cheers after a touchdown. Yet this pressure is also part of the stadium's power. When the Cowboys succeed at AT&T Stadium, the experience is electrifying. A perfectly executed play, a long touchdown run, or a game-changing interception can send waves of emotion through the crowd. The massive screen lights up, the crowd roars, and for a moment, past and present seem to merge. In those moments, players often describe feeling connected to the legends who once wore the same star, as if the building itself is affirming that they belong to something larger than themselves. The psychological impact extends beyond the Cowboys as well. Visiting teams often speak about the intimidation factor of playing in Arlington. The scale of the stadium, the intensity of the crowd, and the constant reminders of the Cowboys' legacy can be unsettling. Even seasoned veterans have admitted that the atmosphere feels different, heavier, as if the expectations of America's team press down on everyone who steps onto the field, regardless of the uniform they wear. Over time, AT&T Stadium has become a mirror reflecting the Cowboys' ongoing struggle between past glory and present ambition. It celebrates what the franchise has achieved while relentlessly demanding more. Every season begins with hope, fueled by memories of 5 Super Bowl titles and the belief that the next one is always just around the corner. Every season also carries the risk of disappointment, magnified by the same history that inspires confidence. In this way, the stadium is both a blessing and a burden. It is a monument to excellence, designed to honor the Cowboys' place in sports history, but it also ensures that mediocrity is never comfortable. To play for the Dallas Cowboys inside the most imposing stadium in the league is to accept that every game is a referendum on legacy. It means understanding that wearing the star is not just about talent, but about mental strength, resilience, and the ability to perform under a spotlight that never truly fades. AT&T Stadium stands as a constant reminder that being America's team is not a slogan. It is a responsibility. For players and fans alike, it represents the unspoken agreement that greatness is not optional, that history must be respected, and that every Sunday carries the weight of everything that came before. In that vast space in Arlington, glory and pressure coexist, shaping every snap, every cheer, and every silence into part of a story that is still being written. The reputation of AT&T Stadium as a place where silence can be more terrifying than noise was not created overnight. It was shaped slowly, through moments of hope and heartbreak, through games that promised redemption but delivered anguish, and through final whistles that drained the air from a building designed to amplify sound. Over time, this silence became a living presence, an invisible character born from shattered expectations and unfulfilled dreams, echoing far louder than any roar of the crowd. One of the most defining nights in this story unfolded on January 14, 2017. Arlington was alive with anticipation as more than 90,000 fans filled AT&T Stadium for a divisional playoff showdown against the Green Bay Packers. The Dallas Cowboys, led by rookie quarterback Dak Prescott and star running back Ezekiel Elliott, represented a new generation, one that many believed was finally ready to restore the franchise to its former glory. The atmosphere inside the stadium before kickoff was electric. Blue and silver jerseys dominated the stands, and the massive video board reflected a sea of belief, of fans convinced that this was the beginning of something special. The game itself unfolded like a dramatic script. Momentum shifted back and forth. Emotions rose and fell, and every big play sent shockwaves through the crowd. On the opposite sideline stood Aaron Rodgers, already regarded as one of the most gifted quarterbacks of his era. Calm, precise, and unshaken by pressure, Rodgers slowly dismantled the Cowboys' defense with surgical efficiency. Still, Dallas fought back. With seconds remaining and the score tied, hope remained alive. Fans held their breath, some already imagining a victorious celebration under the bright lights of Arlington. Then came the moment that would define the stadium's most haunting silence. On 3rd and long, Aaron Rodgers escaped pressure and delivered a perfect pass along the sideline to tight end Jared Cook, a play that would instantly become part of NFL history. The catch set up a field goal attempt by Mason Crosby, who calmly sent the ball through the uprights as time expired. In an instant, celebration turned to disbelief. The crowd, moments earlier deafening, fell into a stunned quiet. Thousands stood frozen, eyes fixed on the field and the giant screen above, unable to process what had just happened. The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating, and shared by every person inside the building. That night crystallized something deeper about AT&T Stadium. It was not just a venue where games were played. It was a place where collective emotion could collapse into stillness. The sound did not fade gradually. It vanished, as if pulled from the air. Players walked slowly toward the locker room, helmets lowered, while fans remained in their seats, some in tears, others staring blankly ahead. That silence lingered long after the stadium lights dimmed. Similar moments followed in the years that came next. Playoff defeats against the Los Angeles Rams, among other rivals, reinforced the growing mythos of the stadium as a place where hope often arrives loudly but leaves quietly. Each loss followed a familiar pattern. The buildup was grand, fueled by national media coverage, celebrity-filled luxury suites, and endless debate about whether this was finally the Cowboys' year. The opening kickoff brought noise, belief, and anticipation. But when the final whistle blew after defeat, the transformation was always the same. The chants stopped, conversations faded, footsteps echoed. The massive structure, built to host thunderous applause, instead amplified absence. What made this silence so unsettling was not just the loss itself, but what it represented. Every playoff defeat reopened old wounds, reminding fans of how long it had been since the Cowboys last lifted the Lombardi Trophy. Since their 5th Super Bowl title in January 1996, following the 1995 season, generations of supporters had grown up hearing stories of greatness rather than witnessing it firsthand. AT&T Stadium, despite its modern brilliance, became the stage where those generational expectations collided with harsh reality. Over time, this collective silence took on symbolic meaning. It came to represent frustration built over decades, promises delayed, and seasons that ended too soon. It was the sound of dreams postponed, of belief shaken but never fully erased. In this way, silence became as much a part of the stadium's identity as its retractable roof or towering arches. It was the emotional aftermath that no technology could hide, no spectacle could distract from. Yet AT&T Stadium is not defined solely by heartbreak. Its history is layered, complex, and deeply intertwined with some of the biggest moments in global sports and entertainment. On February 6, 2011, the stadium hosted Super Bowl XLV when the Green Bay Packers defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers on the sport's biggest stage. The event showcased the stadium to the world, proving that it was capable of handling the magnitude of a global audience. Millions watched as Arlington became the center of the sports universe, its state-of-the-art design and immense scale on full display. Beyond the NFL, the stadium has welcomed the finals of the college football playoff, drawing passionate college fan bases and delivering unforgettable atmospheres. It has hosted WrestleMania, transforming the football field into a spectacle of lights, music, and theatrical drama, with tens of thousands of fans witnessing one of the most iconic events in sports entertainment. Legendary artists have filled the stadium with music, turning it into a concert venue where sound once again reigned supreme. In these moments, AT&T Stadium fulfilled its promise as a multi-purpose global arena, a place where history of all kinds could be made. And yet, despite all these achievements, the stadium's most powerful and unresolved story remains tied to the Dallas Cowboys. No concert, no wrestling event, no college championship can fully overshadow the central question that hangs over the building every NFL season. When will the Cowboys finally return to the pinnacle of the sport? The stadium, in all its grandeur, seems to wait alongside the fans, holding both memory and expectation within its walls. Today, AT&T Stadium stands as a modern temple caught between glory and longing. It celebrates the past through banners, videos, and stories told from one generation to the next. It exerts pressure on the present, demanding excellence under the brightest possible spotlight. And it holds space for the future, for the hope that one day the silence after a game will not be born of defeat but of awe, the kind that follows a championship victory. The true drama of this stadium is not found in its architecture or its technology, but in the emotional cycle that repeats itself year after year. The roar of the crowd at kickoff, the tension of close games, the belief that this time will be different, and the haunting possibility that silence may once again claim the final word. This is what makes AT&T Stadium unique. It is a place where triumph feels explosive, but where defeat feels deeply personal. In Arlington, beneath the vast roof and towering screen, emotion, memory, and hope coexist. The stadium waits, patient and imposing, ready for the moment when the roar of redemption finally replaces the silence of disappointment. Until that day comes, it remains a sacred and unsettling space, a modern temple where dreams are tested, history is remembered, and the line between glory and heartbreak is painfully thin. As this journey through steel, memory, and emotion comes to an end, the story of AT&T Stadium does not truly finish here. Like the Dallas Cowboys themselves, it remains open, unfinished, waiting for the next chapter to be written. Every seat inside that colossal structure in Arlington, Texas carries echoes of cheers, gasps, and silences that have marked generations of fans. From the glory days remembered through grainy footage and legendary names, to the modern era defined by towering screens and relentless pressure, this stadium stands as a living witness to everything the NFL represents at its most intense. If stories like this speak to you, if you feel drawn to the raw emotion hidden behind the helmets and scoreboards, then you are exactly where you belong. The National Football League is not just about games played on Sundays. It is about cities that hold their breath, families that pass down loyalty like an heirloom, and moments that define entire eras. Stadiums like AT&T are not built merely to host football, but to contain history, heartbreak, redemption, and hope all at once. They are places where legends are born, where careers are tested, and where silence can sometimes say more than the loudest roar. By subscribing to the channel, you become part of a community that looks beyond the surface of the sport. Here, the focus is not only on touchdowns and trophies, but on the stories that unfold before and after the final whistle. Activating the notification bell means you will never miss a deep dive into legendary stadiums, unforgettable NFL moments, and the emotional backstage realities that fans rarely get to see. Every new video is another chapter in the ongoing saga of American football, told with intensity, respect for history, and a passion for the game's human side. Leaving a like is more than a simple click. It is a way of supporting storytelling that honors the weight of these moments, the players who carried impossible expectations, and the fans who stayed loyal through triumph and disappointment. And your voice matters too. In the comments, share what you feel when you think about AT&T Stadium. Do you see it as a stage built for glory, a place destined to host redemption and victory once again? Or does it feel more like a modern temple, where silence after defeat cuts deeper than any loss on the scoreboard? Your perspective becomes part of the story, because as long as the lights turn on in Arlington, as long as the star shines at midfield, and as long as fans continue to believe, this story is still alive. And the next unforgettable moment could be just one snap away.